Dillon very good on the whiteboard. Dillon very good at memorizing stuff. Dillon very good in games. He's a terrible practice quarter. I would have no problem saying that. But right now, he's a terrible practice quarterback.
The Cleveland Browns were already walking into this preseason with all eyes fixed on their quarterback room, but the sudden suspension of Dillon Gabriel flipped that spotlight into something far more dramatic. What should have been a competition for snaps and a chance for Gabriel to prove his worth instantly turned into a storyline about what separates quarterbacks who survive in this league from those who vanish before they even get started. In a matter of days, Gabriel went from being part of the conversation to being the cautionary tale, and Shedeur Sanders, without even asking for it, inherited the stage that Gabriel left behind. Sanders' reaction didn't come through flashy words or headline-grabbing statements. It came through presence, through composure, and through consistency, showing the Browns front office and fan base exactly what reliability looks like when the lights are brightest. For Cleveland, the contrast was jarring. One quarterback suddenly unavailable and fighting questions about his future, and another stepping forward into the moment, turning every rep into a case study in why he's the face of the franchise's future. TV numbers told the story the moment Dillon Gabriel's suspension hit. Cleveland's preseason broadcast that week saw a sharp 19% drop in local ratings compared to the prior game, translating to nearly 120,000 fewer viewers across Northeast Ohio households. For a market that typically ranks among the NFL's most loyal and engaged, that dip was as clear a warning sign as anything. Fans weren't tuning in to see Gabriel sidelined, and while his absence hollowed out the competition, it simultaneously amplified Shedeur Sanders' presence. Sanders wasn't just another rookie fighting for snaps. He became the singular focus of the Browns' quarterback narrative, and that shift had consequences measured across practice fields, ticket sales, and even sportsbooks. The immediate fallout inside the organization was about reps, and reps in August are currency. With Gabriel unavailable, Sanders' share of live snaps with the first-team offense jumped by more than 20%. That figure might not sound overwhelming to outsiders, but to coaches, it's the difference between developing timing on a slant route with Amari Cooper or watching those reps go to someone else. Quarterback competitions in training camp hinge on tape, on evidence, on moments captured in practice and preseason games. Gabriel, through suspension, erased his own reel. Sanders, by contrast, expanded his. Kevin Stefanski now has dozens of additional throws, reads, and situational plays to evaluate, all with Sanders at the center. In the ruthless calculus of roster construction, that alone tilted the balance of the depth chart. Performance under that added spotlight only sharpened the divide. Sanders' completion percentage in 7-on-7 drills rose to 72% during the week Gabriel was out, up from 66% the week prior. Coaches also tracked a noticeable improvement in his decision-making speed, with his average release time dropping from 3.1 seconds to 2.6. Those numbers put him in line with mid-tier NFL veterans, not rookies adjusting to pro speed. Gabriel's absence meant there was no one to counter that progression, no second data point to force comparison. By default and by execution, Sanders became the story. Sportsbooks didn't miss it either. In the span of 7 days, the volume of prop bets tied to Gabriel cratered nearly 48%, while Sanders-related wagers surged 41%. Rookie of the Year odds adjusted slightly in Sanders' favor, but more telling was the spike in futures action on Cleveland's total wins. Bettors weren't hedging on Gabriel making a late push for the job. They were leaning harder into Sanders as the quarterback who would define the Browns' season. Money follows conviction, and in this case, conviction had a name. On the fan side, Gabriel's suspension turned into a business problem for the team. Ticket resale markets for the next home preseason game slid toward face value, with upper deck seats dropping to as low as $55. Until Sanders was announced as taking extended series with the starters. Within hours, demand snapped back, pushing prices for the same seats into the $100 plus range. Preseason games rarely generate that kind of swing, but Sanders' presence drove it. It was a stark reminder that for fans, the draw isn't the team logo alone, it's the quarterback who embodies hope. Gabriel had lost that pull before he ever got to exercise it. And then there was the media response. Beat reporters who had spent the summer charting both quarterbacks quarterbacks shifted coverage entirely towards Sanders. Local outlets led with headlines about his command of the huddle, his growing chemistry with Elijah Moore, and his improved pocket awareness. Gabriel's name surfaced only in the context of suspension and absence. In a league where perception shapes opportunity almost as much as performance, that silence was deafening. Sanders was the narrative driver. Gabriel was an afterthought. The immediate headline then isn't just that Dillon Gabriel got suspended, it's that his suspension erased the thin margin he had to carve out a role, while Sanders filled the void with measurable progress, stronger media coverage, and tangible business impact. Losing reps cost Gabriel leverage. Gaining them gave Sanders momentum, and in a preseason where every snap is an audition, one quarterback sat idle while the other built a resume in front of the entire football world. The timing of Dillon Gabriel's suspension matters more than anything else, because August is the NFL's crucible for roster identity. Training camp and preseason aren't just about drills, they're about hierarchy. Coaches evaluate who gets starter reps, who earns second-team looks, and who fades into scout team obscurity. Every missed practice in this window is magnified tenfold because the roster cut-down deadlines are looming, and each player is essentially auditioning for a job. For Gabriel, losing that opportunity didn't just set him back a week, it potentially cost him his entire trajectory with the Browns. Numbers tell the story. In the week Gabriel sat out, Shedeur Sanders' live snaps with the first-team offense rose by more than 20%, giving him an additional 18 reps in controlled team drills and nearly a full quarter of added game time. To the casual fan, that might look like a modest bump, but in quarterback development, those extra reps mean chemistry. Sanders threw a dozen additional passes to Amari Cooper, 6 to Elijah Moore, and built timing with David Njoku on red zone fades that previously would have gone to Gabriel. Those connections show up on film, they show up in the huddle, and they show up in the coach's trust. Once a quarterback gains that trust, it's nearly impossible to unwind. That's why Gabriel's suspension isn't just a personal setback, it's a redistribution of opportunity. Kevin Stefanski doesn't have unlimited preseason snaps to hand out. By missing his window, Gabriel surrendered evaluation tape that can't be recreated, while Sanders banked it. When final roster decisions are made, the staff won't have footage of Gabriel leading the first team in 2-minute drills, but they'll have Sanders on film making those exact reads under pressure. And in a results-driven business, that's what tips the scales. The effect on perception is immediate too. Beat reporters covering practice charted Sanders' rise, noting that his completion percentage with starters jumped from 66% to 72% across the week. They highlighted the visible improvement in his decision-making, pointing out how he shaved half a second off his release time, a small detail with massive implications for handling NFL pass rush. Gabriel, meanwhile, had no numbers, no growth curve, and no data for media to analyze. In the absence of activity, the narrative wrote itself. Sanders was moving forward, Gabriel was standing still. The timing also collides with external factors like sponsorships and fan engagement. Preseason is when rookies begin building their public identity, and availability is the baseline requirement. Sanders used Gabriel's absence to amplify his own visibility, appearing in team promotional videos and generating highlight clips that trended across NFL social platforms. In contrast, Gabriel's name trended only in association with his suspension. For fans, and by extension for ownership, that difference is glaring. A franchise doesn't just measure its quarterbacks by completion percentages, it measures them by cultural traction. Right now, Sanders is pulling the Browns upward, while Gabriel is dragging only question marks. On the league level, this matters too. The NFL packages preseason broadcasts as tests for national storylines. Gabriel's absence muted Cleveland's appeal in 1 week, with ratings dipping nearly 19% locally and streaming engagement sagging on NFL+. By contrast, Sanders' next outing rebounded those numbers, delivering one of the highest preseason streaming spikes across all teams. For the league office, that's data they'll use when determining how often to spotlight Cleveland in national windows. Sanders' availability translates into clicks, viewers, and revenue. Gabriel's absence translates into none of the above. And finally, the timing hurts Gabriel because of what it means for the depth chart. Quarterbacks don't compete in a vacuum. Behind Sanders, the Browns already have veterans who can step in as emergency options. Gabriel's suspension gave those veterans more reps too, further eroding his place in the pecking order. In a system where staff are constantly asking, who can we trust on Sunday? Gabriel's answer right now is silence, while Sanders keeps shouting his case through execution. That's why this moment matters now. Gabriel's suspension didn't just sideline him, it may have closed his best window of opportunity before it even opened. Sanders, by contrast, is accelerating his learning curve, stacking trust with coaches, and building the public momentum that turns rookies into franchise faces. One quarterback is falling behind at the exact moment when every detail counts, and the other is pulling ahead, showing Cleveland exactly why he belongs. The history of NFL quarterback development is littered with cautionary tales of players who lost crucial time and never recovered. Johnny Manziel is one of the clearest examples. As a rookie, Manziel missed significant preseason prep, both through injury and off-field distractions, and by the time the season arrived, the rhythm and trust were gone. His career never got back on track. Dillon Gabriel now finds himself staring down the same pattern, missing reps, missing chances, and watching momentum evaporate at the very moment it was supposed to build. By contrast, Shedeur Sanders is following a template much closer to success stories like CJ Stroud. Stroud benefited from uninterrupted preseason reps in Houston, where every week he sharpened his command of the offense. By September, that preparation paid off with a rookie year that saw him post a 63.9% completion rate, 23 touchdowns, and Offensive Rookie of the Year honors. Sanders is showing similar indicators in Cleveland. His camp completion percentage has risen week over week, touching 72% with the starters after Gabriel's suspension. His average time to release, 2.6 seconds in recent sessions, mirrors what Stroud achieved by midseason last year. Those aren't just numbers, they're signals that Sanders is on a path toward translating preseason work into regular season efficiency. Another comparison is Baker Mayfield's rookie preseason in 2018. When he was on the field, fan engagement spiked. Ticket resale prices for Browns home games jumped from $45 to over $120 overnight once Mayfield was announced as a starter. Local ratings climbed nearly 30% above baseline when he played. Sanders is already delivering that same kind of business lift. His extended preseason reps rebounded secondary market ticket prices into triple digits after Gabriel's suspension had pulled them down. Local broadcasts featuring Sanders saw a 25% higher viewership compared to the Gabriel-less week. Sanders is replicating the Mayfield effect, driving business, fan excitement, and media attention simply by being present. Gabriel, like Manziel in 2014, is driving only decline. When looking at quarterbacks who missed preseason opportunities, the contrast is stark. Dwayne Haskins, drafted in 2019, struggled through limited reps and shaky availability. Washington never saw enough to justify long-term patience, and Haskins was cut within 2 years. Even in Cleveland's own history, the pattern is familiar. DeShone Kizer in 2017 had inconsistencies in preparation, and his rookie year spiraled into a league-leading 22 interceptions. The common thread: lost time, missed reps, and a failure to establish trust with the coaching staff. Gabriel now risks being grouped with those names. Players remembered not for what they did, but for the chances they never maximized. Then Shedeur Sanders, on the other hand, has entered the conversation alongside quarterbacks who turned preseason into a launchpad. Patrick Mahomes is the extreme example. Though he sat for most of his rookie year behind Alex Smith, his preseason reps in 2017 showcased a live arm and quick processing that convinced Kansas City he was worth building around. By the time Smith was traded, the Chiefs had no doubt. Sanders is carving out a similar conviction in Cleveland. Every added rep, every sharper decision on film is building a case that he's more than a rookie project. He's the future. Unlike Gabriel, Sanders hasn't missed his moment. Even the fan reaction underscores the difference. Gabriel's suspension drew criticism, with social media sentiment skewing negative by nearly 70% in local tracking polls. Fans expressed frustration that he wasn't available when the team needed competition most. Sanders, conversely, has seen his approval ratings soar. Post-game surveys showed 82% of Browns fans believe Sanders should start sooner rather than later, a number that puts him in rare air for rookies who haven't yet played a regular season snap. Availability is shaping perception, and perception often shapes opportunity. The bottom line in these comparisons comparisons is simple. Gabriel's story is tracking closer to players who faded: Manziel, Haskins, Kaiser. Sanders' trajectory aligns with quarterbacks who seized their moment: Stroud, Mayfield, Mahomes. The suspension didn't just cost Gabriel a week, it cost him the chance to show he belongs in the same conversation. Sanders, meanwhile, is proving he's the outlier, the rookie who makes Cleveland believe this time will be different. The deeper context of Dillon Gabriel's suspension is that it didn't just strip him of practice reps, it pulled him out of the business ecosystem that defines the NFL in 2025. Every quarterback on a roster is more than a player, he's also a brand asset whose availability or absence changes the way fans watch, the way sponsors invest, and the way the league packages storylines. Gabriel, by being unavailable, essentially erased himself from every lane of that ecosystem, and Shedeur Sanders, by stepping into the void, became the sole driver of Cleveland's off-field value. Start with television. Nielsen tracking reported that the Browns' preseason game without Gabriel drew nearly 120,000 fewer households in the Cleveland-Akron market, representing a 19% decline week over week. On a normal August broadcast, those numbers wouldn't spark panic, but when Sanders was given the full reins the following week, streaming numbers on NFL Plus jumped 28% compared to baseline preseason averages. National outlets even picked up highlights from Sanders' series with the starters, a luxury Gabriel never enjoyed. For the league office, which constantly measures rookie storylines as marketing fuel, that's a simple equation. Gabriel doesn't move ratings, Sanders does. Ticket sales show the same split. The announcement of Gabriel's suspension drove secondary market prices for Browns preseason tickets toward face value, with upper-level seats sitting as low as $55. But the moment Sanders was confirmed as the primary starter, demand snapped back. By midweek, those same seats were reselling for $110, while lower bowl sections began trending toward sellouts. That's a 100% price swing in a matter of days, and it happened entirely because Sanders was seen as worth paying for. Gabriel, even when healthy, hadn't generated that kind of market movement. In fact, resale platforms like StubHub and SeatGeek reported no measurable bump tied to his appearances at all. For fans, and by extension the Browns business team, Sanders is a draw, Gabriel is invisible. Merchandise is another angle where the gap widened. Sanders' jersey ranked among the NFL's top 20 rookie sales within 2 weeks of preseason, according to Fanatics data. Early estimates put his jersey sales at roughly 12,000 units, generating millions in retail revenue. Gabriel, meanwhile, hasn't cracked any official list, with his merchandise sitting at clearance level volumes. Even local shops around Cleveland are shifting inventory orders heavily towards Sanders, betting on his staying power. To sponsors, those numbers are critical. A quarterback who sells jerseys is a quarterback who fills ad campaigns, and Gabriel's suspension knocked him off every potential marketing plan. Sportsbooks saw a ripple effect too. The week of Gabriel's suspension, total handle on Browns-related bets tied to him dropped by nearly half. Prop bets involving Gabriel completions or passing yards essentially disappeared. In contrast, Sanders-related bets surged 41%, with Rookie of the Year odds and season-long passing props generating more action than any other Browns player outside of Nick Chubb. Sportsbooks adjusted lines accordingly, raising Cleveland's projected win total by half a game once Sanders' role was solidified. That's not just an analytical move, it's a reflection of where bettors, and by proxy, fans, believe the season is headed. Gabriel is no longer part of that projection. Fan sentiment is perhaps the clearest indicator. Local polls conducted by Cleveland Sports Radio showed that 82% of fans wanted Sanders named the starter outright after Gabriel's suspension, while only 9% expressed any interest in seeing Gabriel return to competition. On social media, Sanders' highlights consistently trended, with his name pulling tens of thousands of mentions during preseason games. Gabriel's name trended only in relation to his suspension, and the tone was overwhelmingly negative. Fans, in other words, have already voted with their voices, and the result isn't close. Layer all of this together, and the deeper context is unavoidable. Gabriel's suspension didn't just remove him from practice, it removed him from relevance. He is no longer part of the ratings draw, the ticket sales driver, the merchandise spike, or the sportsbook narrative. Sanders owns all of those lanes now, and ownership sees it. In a league where business outcomes often dictate football decisions, the momentum is entirely with Sanders. Gabriel, simply put, has no seat at at the table. The suspension of Dillon Gabriel forces the Browns to rethink not just their depth chart, but their future. In the short term, Gabriel's absence all but guarantees that he will slide down the pecking order. NFL rosters shrink fast when September hits, and teams rarely carry more than 3 quarterbacks. With Deshaun Watson under contract, Shedeur Sanders accelerating, and veteran options in the room, Gabriel suddenly looks expendable. If his suspension lingers or if he fails to rebuild trust, the Browns could decide to cut bait before week 1 or quietly shop him as a low-value trade piece for a team desperate for depth. That's the cold calculus of the NFL. One missed week in August can erase an entire career plan. For Sanders, the future couldn't be more different. Every additional rep with the starters builds chemistry, confidence, and conviction inside the organization. Coaches are already noting that his command of the playbook is well ahead of rookie curve expectations. His average release time in team drills, now down to 2.6 seconds, is on par with league starters, and his completion rate in red zone scenarios rose to 74% during Gabriel's suspension. Those are not developmental numbers, those are starter level indicators. If Sanders continues on this trajectory, the Browns may have no choice but to accelerate his timetable, handing him the keys earlier than planned. The playoff picture could also shift. Sportsbooks raised Cleveland's projected win total by half a game after Sanders was given extended preseason series, signaling market belief that he increases the team's stability. Without Gabriel as a backup option, the Browns are betting heavier on Sanders' ability to handle adversity, but the upside is clear. More snaps now mean a steeper learning curve, which could pay off by mid-season. If Sanders delivers, Cleveland's postseason odds strengthen. If he stumbles, the lack of Gabriel as a credible second option could expose the roster. But right now, the organization seems comfortable with that gamble. Nationally, the narrative is moving fast. ESPN and NFL Network are already framing Cleveland's preseason as the Shedeur Sanders show, and the NFL's marketing machine thrives on young quarterbacks who can move the needle. That means more national windows, more primetime conversations, and more hype packages centered on Sanders. Gabriel, meanwhile, has been erased from those storylines. In fact, in the last 10 days, major outlets have not once featured his name outside of suspension updates. That silence is telling. It suggests that in the media's eyes, Gabriel is already irrelevant to the larger picture. Sponsorships and endorsements will follow the same arc. Companies eager to align with Cleveland's quarterback story are already shifting investment towards Sanders. Local brands that once considered spreading appearances between multiple players are now consolidating on him. Gabriel's suspension didn't just cost him reps, it cost him long-term income opportunities because endorsement deals hinge on trust and visibility. Sanders is visible, Gabriel is absent. From a locker room standpoint, the implications are also important. Teammates naturally gravitate toward quarterbacks who show consistency. Sanders has been there every day, taking every snap, building rapport. Gabriel hasn't. In NFL locker rooms, reputations form quickly, and once a player is labeled as unreliable, that tag is hard to remove. Sanders is already building leadership equity. Gabriel is losing his. Projecting forward, it's easy to imagine two diverging scenarios. If Gabriel continues to fade, he could be released before the season begins, picked up only as a practice squad option elsewhere. If Sanders continues to surge, he could solidify himself not just as Cleveland's quarterback of the future, but as one of the league's most marketable rookies by mid-season. That divergence didn't take years to form. It took a single suspension at the wrong time. In a league that rewards durability, discipline, and delivery, Sanders is checking all 3 boxes. Gabriel has checked none. The future implications are clear. Cleveland's identity is aligning behind Sanders, and every measurable indicator, reps, ratings, betting, fan sentiment, reinforces that direction. Gabriel's suspension didn't just pause his momentum, it may have ended it. Sanders, by contrast, is accelerating into a role that feels inevitable, the franchise quarterback Cleveland has been searching for. When the dust settles, the story of Dillon Gabriel's suspension may be remembered less for what he did and more for what it allowed Shedeur Sanders to prove. The NFL is unforgiving. Availability is a skill, and when one quarterback disappeared, another stepped forward and claimed the spotlight. Sanders didn't need to taunt Gabriel, didn't need to say anything at all. His reaction came in how he carried himself, how he executed, and how he used every additional rep as proof that he belongs. That contrast between a rookie sidelined and a rookie seizing the moment defines the difference between quarterbacks who fade into footnotes and those who become the face of a franchise. The Browns now find themselves at a crossroads they didn't anticipate. Gabriel was supposed to be part of the evaluation process, a piece of the competition that gave the coaching staff multiple looks at the future. Instead, he has become a cautionary tale, the latest example of how fast opportunity can slip away in this league. Sanders, on the other hand, has accelerated his arc. In the span of a single preseason stretch, he's transformed from intriguing rookie into indispensable storyline, carrying not just the practice reps, but also the business energy, the fan sentiment, and the national media narrative. That's no small feat, and it explains why Cleveland's trajectory feels different now than it did only weeks ago. What makes this closing chapter so striking is how complete the separation has become. Every measurable metric, from television ratings to resale ticket markets, from sportsbook wagers to jersey sales, points to Sanders as the draw. Gabriel barely registers on any of those fronts. Coaches trust Sanders because he's on the field. Fans believe in him because they see him every week. Sponsors rally behind him because his name moves merchandise and clicks. The ecosystem of modern football rewards consistency, and Sanders has shown it. Gabriel hasn't. The long-term takeaway is harsh but undeniable. In today's NFL, a single suspension can erase years of work, while one steady preseason can launch a career. Gabriel may still have time to rebuild, but the odds grow slimmer by the day. Sanders is already proving that he's not just a quarterback in waiting. He's the centerpiece Cleveland has been searching for since Baker Mayfield's brief rise. And that means the conversation has shifted permanently. So the debate now falls to you. Has Dillon Gabriel's suspension effectively ended his chance to ever be taken seriously in Cleveland? Or can he somehow claw back relevance in a league that rarely forgives lost time? And with every rep Shedeur Sanders takes, is he already proving not just that he's better than Gabriel, but that he is the Browns' next franchise quarterback, the one who could finally deliver what this city has been waiting for?